Okay, I'm gonna call the Wednesday, October 15th, 2025 meeting of Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District to order. It is 3:31 p.m. here in Giddings, Texas. We have quorum here. You on call? Nancy, are you here? Okay, well, we have 8. Maybe she's in. Welcome, everybody. I think we have a local elected.
Yes, we do.
Mr.
We have our county judge, the county judge, Frank Malinak is here.
Thank you, Jack. Good to see you. Any other dignitaries? Then let's all say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay. Item 2 on the agenda are our public comments. Board directors will not ask questions or take action during this item regarding comments on items not on today's agenda. Responses from the board directors are limited to factual statements, recitation of existing district policy, or a request for the subject to be placed on a future agenda for Texas Government Code Section 551.42. So, do I have anyone here who wants to comment on non-agenda items? I believe Mr. Tyrone W. Hooper is fine. You may come up. You'll limit it to 3 minutes. Okay.
Afternoon, everybody. Alex told me to go ahead and talk. I already talked to him, but anyways, I recently had some well issues due to the water falling, dropping at the house back in August the 20th. Like anybody else would, I went ahead and called people that installed the well. They came out thinking that maybe something was wrong with the well. Come find out when we pulled everything out of the hole, the water had dropped in about 4 foot of where my pump was. Probably about 110 foot of water since we've been there about 4 years, reckon. I tried to get a hold of Elvis, and unfortunately he was out of town at a conference and wouldn't be back because on Wednesday. He wouldn't be back till the following Monday. Unfortunately, I have horses and animals, and they live there. They have no way of getting water as well. And if I would have sent them home or tried to figure out something, or charge me another $500 just to come back and set back up on the well. I talked to the lady, the secretary, and gave her all the information of what was going on. And I didn't even know about this until the well guys told me about the mediation or mitigation. And anyhow, and so I talked to the young lady, and she said, "Well, it shouldn't be a problem. Go ahead and go with it." I'm blaming her. I didn't even know there was proper procedure to do this. So I had to do something, so I went ahead and made a call and did it. And it come out to about $1,840, which is pretty cheap because I drilled the well $680, everyone stayed $300 when I first drilled the well, water. So if we'd been 300, I would have drilled, additional 300 foot or something, probably get down there with the water column. So in a way, I felt like I was saving money for you guys and for taxpayers pay for it anyway. But anyhow, that's all I got. I just was kind of concerned because I couldn't get a hold of anybody. If I would have got a hold of Elvis or talked about it, and the driller was there, he could have confirmed and decided we need to go a little deeper or whatever. But I was and I talked to Elvis and said that y'all probably would deny it, but which is fine. I understand because I wasn't expecting it in the first place. But that's all I have is that I think maybe if Elvis out there, somebody needs to stand up or be there to be able to make that decision because we got animals and we raise dogs as well. Somebody needs to make that decision so we can't go without water. Yeah, that's all I got.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Thanks for coming to speak. Do I have any more folks who want to talk on non-bid items? Okay, everyone else wants to speak on agenda items and need to know will want to speak now or wait until that agenda item comes up, and that would be Mr. Wyatt, Mrs. Wyatt, Ms. Willman, and Mr. Willman. Want to wait until the agenda item comes up, or do you want to?
Sure, we'll wait.
Okay, wait. Good. Okay, moving on to item number 3, public hearings. We have 3 public hearings today. Our first public hearing is 3A. It's a public hearing regarding proposed revisions to the district's rules to amend sections 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 13, 14, and 15. We'll have a presentation on this by our attorney, Natasha Mark.
You know, what's sad is that you can't get from there to here without a little bit of assistance. But good afternoon. I'm Natasha Martin for the record, representing the district. And so, Madam President, you reviewed the sections proposed to be amended. I will briefly cover the amendments, proposed amendments themselves. So section 1 proposes to amend the definition of district office to allow the board to designate it by, basically by motion to designate the district office. Section 3 proposes changes in Rule 3.1, and these are where your exemptions for permitting live. And so 3.1A1 proposes to acknowledge existing operating permits issued to domestic and livestock use wells issued before today. And so we did receive a public comment on this rule, and it recommended for clarity's sake adding that this validation also applies to wells of incapable of producing more than 25,000 gallons per day. And so I do agree with that clarification. I think that the change would be non-substantive when it's applied. The next change in this rule is 3.1A4. And what this does is it allows for an exemption for wells on tracts less than 10 acres and producing, incapable of producing more than 25,000 gallons per day. What this does is it gives the general manager, it establishes a process where he can grant the exemption, or the exemption can be denied, or the exemption can be kicked to the board. The difference with 3.1A4 and the other rule that allows an exemption for 10 acres or more is that this has more of a process, gives the GM authority to delegate. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to interrupt me. So our next rule is Rule 5.2C. And so this is a rule that we would be amending. There's an existing rule to allow kind of expedited operating permits when the request is for less than 50 acre feet per year requested. If you're following your packets, this is page 21. And so essentially this rule would allow the general manager to permit 2 of these up to 50 acre feet per year wells and do it in a kind of an expedited manner. If a third is requested, it would go through the normal operating public notice, public participation process. We were proposing a limit on this expedited process to prevent sort of, kind of piecemeal or possibly even circumvention of the public participation process. We're not saying you can't have a third 50 acre foot or less, but we're saying a third would go through a different process. let's see. We also have a change under 5.2 C D. This is one of our legislative changes from the legislative section. And it would change the rule to require the board to also consider impacts to wells that are registered in the district and exempt from the requirement to obtain a permit. Those are your considerations in granting or denying a permit. There's one change to those considerations. We also have an amendment to 5.5B. This extends the time period by which a permitted well the permit would automatically terminate. Before it was 365 days, but now it's 545 days because we have learned that it is hard to get on the well driller's schedule. Okay, we are on page 30, under rule 6.4. This rule would require reporting for transport permit. Basically a metering of how much water is pumped at the well field or the well site, and then also reporting of how much water is delivered to the endpoint or the receiving area. And so permittees shall provide a district with monthly reports detailing the total amount of water at the point of withdrawal, the total amount of water at the delivery point. And this rule is proposed for the public purpose of conservation, as water loss was a major focus at the legislature. And it is, in essence, just a reporting rule. Is not, it would not invalidate a permit or put a permittee at issue of losing their permit based on the data provided. Rule 7.7, we're on page 37. This changes, I believe, the word permittee to applicant for replacement wells. On the next page, we've got two changes. Very top, also under replacement wells. The general manager shall approve the application in writing if the general manager determines that for the replacement well, the location is proposed within 100 feet of the existing well. We were changing that from, I believe, 500 feet to 100. And then rule 7.8 at the bottom of the same page. This is a new rule, and it allows for a process for surrendering a permit. So if someone held a permit, they no longer wanted it, now there's a process for them to basically relinquish that. Rule 8.3B, that applied to well spacing variances and provided a process for variance requests for exempt wells. That's page 39. The 39 to 40. Y'all are flipping really hard because I tricked you. There's no 8.3B. But we're proposing to strike it. But guess what? I'm proposing to leave it in for today. Only because I want to revisit that there is a requirement for exempt wells for setbacks. So there's not a spacing limitation between wells, but there is, in essence, a spacing limitation for setbacks. So for right now, I'm proposing that you actually reject the change to 8.3. And nearing in order. We have a change. It's a new rule, 10.4, page 50. And so essentially this establishes a requirement whenever you've gotten an authorization and you're drilling a well, have your authorization on site when you're drilling that well. We did receive a comment from on this proposed rule to change the word landowner, requiring the landowner to make the permit visible, to change that to permittee. And because sometimes the landowner is not the permittee, I do agree with that comment. So you could make that change, it would be non-substantive. Rule 13.7 is on page 57. And this is a new rule, and it would establish a process that would allow the general manager to negotiate with someone in the district who has violated district rules or their permit or chapter 36. It essentially would be it sets out a schedule of options for the general manager to use in a negotiation. And so this settlement procedure is very common with districts. It is put in place a lot of times to avoid going to litigation because the statute gives groundwater conservation districts authority to seek their remedy, get someone into compliance and go to district court in order to do that. This process takes advantage of Chapter 36 broad contracting authority. You can basically contract with any one kind purpose, and it establishes a mechanism for the general manager to kind of achieve compliance without going through the lengthier litigation.
There's no attachment.
Oh, it should be at the very end. Is it not fair? No. Okay, it's at the very end of your packet. Okay, and the very top is titled Enforcement Settlement Guidelines. Yeah. Yeah. And there's a narrative that explains the process. Attached to that narrative are different, basically settlement of funds for that negotiation. And we did receive comments on this rule. One of the comments, in essence, said that these proposed settlement options were the fees and the fee schedule were more like administrative penalties or administrative fines, and that the district does not have authority to impose administrative fines. I disagree with that because of the structure of how this has been set up. It basically elected and both sides are negotiating the deal. So at which point anything is presented as a settlement, the permit holder would have had an opportunity to bargain for and review these terms. So I do not think that this is in violation of their fee structure and authority that's been set up.
What? Yeah.
Then I kind of hop backwards to rule 14.3, and this is your rule that you were required to adopt in 2023 when the legislature established a way for a landowner with interest in the district to petition the district to engage in rulemaking. And so the change you're proposing today would basically set out a time frame for that petition process. And so the petition would be submitted or received to the district between June 15th and July 15th. And then there's a very prescriptive timeline after that. The rule would have to, if you're going to adopt the rules, it's got to be done in 90 days. We did receive a comment on this one, essentially that the time frame you're proposing only one time frame per year is too limiting, and that the statute basically doesn't say that you the statute doesn't have you limiting it to one time frame. Basically, they're saying that anybody at any time, it's not anybody, but a real property owner, at any time someone could submit a petition. I disagree with that, primarily because the statute does say that by rule, the district shall prescribe the form submitted and the procedure for submission, consideration, and disposition. I think that allows you to do it in that window. Okay, and then we've got a change to 15.4 notice mailings. Essentially, this codifies the practice of how we're mailing notices for public hearings, and it has the district mailing the notice, and it also has the applicant paying for the mailing. And that was on pages 63 and 64. I think with that, I've made my way through all of the changes.
Mark,
Yes.
when you talked about Rule 6.4B, I noticed the other things you mentioned on it, but you didn't mention the comment file.
We do have, and we've received 2 written comments, and the board has received copies of those comments.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. And for the record, the written comments were submitted by Recharge Water and the Colorado River Authority. I can answer questions, but I think you might have an opportunity to hear from me later, so you might open it up for public.
Yeah, let me just be really clear that we did receive comments from LCRA dated October 8th, 2025, which have been given to everyone on the board and will be part of the record. And we also received them from Carol and Waldrop on behalf of Recharge Water LP, and those were distributed.
Yep, I think those came in yesterday.
They'll be part of the record.
Tasha, have we
Yes.
ever received a petition?
Not to my knowledge.
Hold on.
Was that on the internet?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we've gone through Director Smith, I guess, a couple of years with that rule in place without receiving it.
Okay, we're gonna just open this up to any public comments. Anybody that is here in person or on the internet who wants to make any comments? Any internet? Oh, yes, sir. If you'd state your name, who you represent, that would be great.
Sure. My name is Shan Rutherford, and I prepared the comments on behalf of Groundwater.
Great.
Yeah. The only thing I just wanted to refresh real quickly was I'm sure council stated that this metering on both ends of a transport project was recommended as a conservation concern and response to interest by the legislature. I would just posit that if that's the case, then why wouldn't the same apply to our basic issue with this rule is that it appears to violate the requirements of Chapter 36 that transport permits are not criminally. I'd ask you to consider that as you consider adoption of the rules. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anyone else? Comment? People on Zoom? Wherever you are. Director? Any questions? Not yet. Okay, well, if we don't have any more comments, any more questions, I'm gonna go ahead
close this here. At 3:15.
Okay, let's move on to our next hearing. Shall we? This is a public hearing under 3E, public hearing regarding application by Aqua Water Supply Corporation for an operating permit amendment to withdraw 1,210 acre-feet of water per year in Bastrop County, Texas, to be used for public and municipal purposes. And Gretchen Miller of LRE is
Yes,
Oh.
President, Rogers, so the applicant will
Oh, okay.
introduce it and
Okay,
then
great.
the general manager, hydrogeology.
Okay, fine. Would you state your name?
I will, of course. I am Emily O'Leary, and I am the engineering manager at Aqua Water Supply Corporation. All right, well, good afternoon, members of the board. As you are aware, Aqua Water Supply Corporation is a member-owned nonprofit utility serving more than 100,000 people in Bastrop County and surrounding areas. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak today regarding Aqua's S3 well permit amendment. Our service area continues to experience significant population growth, driving increased demand for water. The last time I was here, you heard from me and our general manager about the range of strategies Aqua WSC is actively pursuing, including reclaimed water, development of brackish water supplies, and other long-term regional projects, all aimed at meeting the growing demands on our system. Those efforts are well underway, and our ultimate goal is to build a diverse and sustainable water supply portfolio for our members. However, in the near term, fresh groundwater production continues to be the most practical and cost-effective way to meet immediate demands. As a member-owned nonprofit cooperative, every improvement we make is funded directly by our members, so pursuing the most economical solutions is a responsibility that we take seriously. The S3 amendment seeks to increase the instantaneous production rate from 556 gallons per minute to 1,500 gallons per minute, and the annual production from 900 acre feet per year to 1,210 acre feet per year. This request remains within the aggregate permitted capacity of the S well field. Our previous S3 well was originally constructed, I believe, in the 1970s, and after decades of production, the casing of that well collapsed. When the well was re-drilled using modern drilling methods and updated materials, it yielded significantly greater production capacity than the original. This improved performance is the reason for the increased production request. We deeply value our partnership with the district and share your commitment to sustainable groundwater use. This amendment represents a necessary and responsible step in continuing to serve our growing community. On behalf of Aqua's members, who are by extension also members of the West Pines Groundwater Conservation District, I respectfully request approval of the S3 permit amendment. Thank you for your time and consideration. And I'll happily answer any questions if now is the appropriate time for that.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you a question.
Sure.
I know that it's been explained to me before, but would you just briefly explain what instantaneous capacity?
So the state says that we as a water supply have to provide 0.6 GPM for every connection that we serve. So on an instantaneous basis, our needs surpass what the average production would be throughout the year. So realistically, not every single person in our service area is pulling 0.6 GPM all the time, but we have to plan and size all of our infrastructure around that assumption. So, for example, in a winter month, so let's look at February, we had a really nice February, but we used probably about 20% of our instantaneous permitted capacity, meaning, that we had our wells operating maybe 20%, 30% of the time. In August or even September, which I think was our worst month, our wells were running 90% of the time just because on an instantaneous basis, people were using more water. So across the whole year, we may not, be that close to exceeding our aggregated permit, but on an instantaneous basis, on a daily basis, we might be. And so that's the need for increasing specifically our instantaneous capacity.
And this new well will do it for you.
Yeah, so when we re-drilled this well, the was for 556 ppm. And when we did the pump test and everything, it was quite a bit more productive than that. And if the well can do that, and if the science supports it, then of course we would be happy with that increased production out of that well.
Okay, well, thank you for that explanation.
Is there a well that be shut down in connection with
Um,
or producing that?
No, ma'am. So the previous S3 well that we had, we got a permit to re-drill that well. We had plugged the original, and so we re-drilled that well. But there's not an existing mechanism, I suppose, to re-drill a well and simultaneously increase the capacity of that well without doing this amendment process. So we re-drilled the well, and then now this is the amendment to increase the capacity of that.
There's no offsetting for these wells. There's no offsetting or shutting down another one.
So it's all, my understanding is that that's all built into our aggregate capacity for the S well field. So on an annual basis, we'll be within our aggregate limit, and then on an instantaneous basis, that gets built into the overall permit.
Anyone else? Thank you, Ms. O'Leary.
Thank you.
And Gretchen Miller.
Good afternoon. My name is Gretchen Miller. I'm with LRE Water and we're representing the district today. I was charged with modeling for the impacts of these permits that Aqua is applying for this hearing and the hearing that's scheduled later today. Just as a reminder, we know that we have long-term drawdown across the district from the PS41 model. And some recent mapping of these that we have, we can see what this looks like long-term if all of the permits were to be used. We're just setting the stage for this. This is the central Florida Queen City Carrizo Wilcox scan that's been approved by the board, and all of the modeling takes place in layer 9 of this model. You can see over what the GAM predicts happens based on all of the permits being used over time. This is just to set the stage. This is not the Rockwood's pumping out of it. In case you know. Okay, so going back, so Aqua WSC is asking us to increase pumping in the S3 well for this permit. And similar to what was just mentioned, some details on the well. The well is 511 feet deep and it is screened into the Simsboro Formation. It's located at State Highway 304 and Shiloh. As the permittee said, the S field that we're modeling, that S field total to remain the same, but this one well to increase by 310 acre feet per year and to increase in its pumping rate. The comment about new well being drilled and then making it more efficient entirely makes sense. New wells like this and the drilling technologies frequently can get higher yields than what was just used previously.
Well, that original well, it looks like it was permitted in 2001. 5 years old.
It is young for a well.
Oh, it is.
I've seen this, up to 50 years. All right, so some statistics about the well. I noted the screened intervals here. There's 2 screened intervals and 1 interval at play that is screened off or blanked off. But again, it targets the what triggered some of the change here, or I should say, one thing that we need to know is that there are nearby wells that when the pumping rate is expanded from 500 to 1500 GPM, it triggers a different rule in the district's guidelines. So the difference there changes the setback distance required for a well. And when we expand the setback distance to 5,000 foot buffer, this brings in a list of additional wells that should be considered as part of this permitting. And so I've got the list here and the distance from S3, which is noted as the star here. All of the wells are shown in blue. All of the wells that do not belong to Aqua and also are into the Simsboro are noted with the red rings around. So these are all the wells that should be considered as neighboring wells. You'll notice that S3 is pretty much in roughly the center of the S field here. You see the other S wells within the area. So we simulated this change in pumping. We went from this PS41 baseline, which was what I said earlier, sets the stage. That has all of Aqua's permits and permitted wells in it. Okay, so we made the assumption that when they changed the S3 well, make that higher, all of the other nearby wells in the S field will go down equally. This is not necessarily how they have to operate, but we're assuming that, we're making the assumption that is how they would operate. So the impact that this has in the model, I've shown in several different ways. The first one here is groundwater elevations at the S3 well. And here you can see the top, the aquifer layer that they're targeting. The screen, that's in gray. The screened interval, the open interval in the well, that's in purple. And then the water levels in the well. In the PS4-1 baseline, we have the black line there. This what we're calling the S3 expansion in blue. And then the combined action, since both of these permits are addressing the S field, the combined S3 and S12 in orange. And you can see the difference between the black, blue, and orange lines together, and then the aquifer section. That's the difference between the top of the aquifer and those lines is what we're referring to as remaining artesian head. Right? So when we've talked in the past about percent remaining artesian head, this is the type of analysis that we're doing to look at that. So we model drawdown at the S3 well, and we can see what that looks like with the PS4-1 baseline. And you see where the pumping starts here in that model. In the S3 expansion, you see the blue here, and then the S3 and S12 combined, you see the orange. Okay. You see the drawdown approaches a bit over 100 feet. And this is at the well itself, so this is typically the maximum drawdown that you can see from that well is producing. That's going to be the maximum impact it has. We have a little bit of change in the S3 expansion, and then a little bit more significant change in the S3 and S12 combined. So looking at this in the attributable drawdown, so this is the drawdown, this is the difference between the black line and the blue line, and the black line and the orange line. So attributable drawdown to making this change is a little over 2 feet. and that's in the well itself. And we can see if we combine the two changes, you see we have a drawdown approaching 9 feet from that combined change. And really what this is saying is that as compared to the other permit that's going to be heard today, this is a really relatively minor change. And again, you see attributable drawdown plotted at 1 year. So we started this assuming that the permit would change starting in, in an even year, 2026, just how the model works, and lasting 1 year, that's on the left, and what it looks like when it's 44 years down the road. So really when we're talking about how much this is going to change the district-wide outlook, we're looking at a maximum of really 2.5 feet of additional drawdown in some areas, and other areas we're looking at less drawdown. So the light blue means those areas will be experiencing less drawdown, right? Because really it is a modification to just where you're putting the pumping and not an overall volume. As far as how this impacts neighbors, looking at the total drawdown here versus, in the first column and the attributable drawdown in the second there, numbers, the changes experienced in the wells in this surrounding buffer area are between a maximum of 0.53 feet of additional drawdown in well map ID here on number 7, and actually a positive impact on well 9. So less drawdown on well 9 than I experienced before. And part of this is a function of where this is relative to the other wells. The other wells in the well field tend to be closer to the other users. And so, to some extent, this is less impactful because the volumes in the other wells are going down, even though this one's going up. And drawdown is going to be a function of distance from where you're pumping. So for some of these wells, it puts it a little bit quicker. Looking at the changes in the water budget at the county scale or at the district scale, we do not see much more than 1% in any of our categories. So the well would pull more from the shallow flow system and less from layer 9. So we'll be pulling more from the outcrop area. But again, these are differences on the order of like 2 acre feet, relatively minor to the change. Okay, so in summary, I would say in my technical assessment, this is really presenting a substantial change in the overall existing S field operations. Drawdown at the well is of course going to be more with a higher pumping rate. And some drawdown does change at the wells within that 5,000 feet radius, but it is less than a foot a foot at those. Just as a note, this well and with this change means there'll be approximately 46 feet of remaining artesian head at the end of the 2070 planning period, which is about 29%.
That's 29% of what we have today.
Of what you had in 2011. That's how the DFCs are structured. Questions?
Let me ask you a question. If I know that we have done some mitigation in this area already, but actually it sounds from your report as though maybe that happened since 2020 and the changes from, when I look at your graphs, the big change happened from 2020 till right now. and then it's gonna level off, so. Yes, predictions on mitigation needs out there?
I have not looked into that
Okay.
yet. Oh, I can.
No, it's fine. Thank you. Okay, do we have any other comments? Present or on the internet? Anyone want to comment on this hearing? No? All right.
One is that, I don't know much about this, but she's trying to tell us that the water level's not gonna drop very far, but I said, my well's been,
I'm sorry. You want to comment? I'm gonna have you come forward and give your name.
okay. My name's Tyrone Luther, I thought very I'm not an engineer, I don't know much about water wells, but what she's saying is not gonna drop by 2070, is that what that's saying right there? Not gonna drop very much, but within 5 years of my house, I've dropped over 100 feet.
What is your location?
Lexington.
He's in the Vista Ridge area.
Yeah, that's.
Totally different area.
Yes.
So I'm still saying as much water as there, and you're asking for a double rate of that pump, right? You're gonna increase that. Lady before was talking about doubling the rate from 500 to 1,000. That's double. So I mean, I'm just saying that you're looking at volumes. Me, I mean, I'm not near like I said that. I've got to be concerned how much water you're pulling on me. I'm gonna start getting all these people are gonna start pulling all their have to start pulling the wells to get them so deep. These little pumps can't do it. Then you got to go commercial. How people are gonna get water that have no access to city water. That's all I got to say. It's crazy.
Thank you, Mr. Luther.
All right.
Any more comments? Any more?
Speak. Explain it.
Someone?
Yes.
Who is that? Speak up. Give us your name. Hello?
No.
Okay, nobody there. All right. If there are no further comments or evidence or testimony to be given, and I'm going to close this hearing at 4:08. I'm going to move on to our next public hearing, under 3C, public hearing regarding application by Aqua Water Supply Corporation for an operating permit to withdraw 1,700 acre feet of water per year in Bastrop County to be used for municipal purposes. Ms. Elliott. Learn.
All right, for the record, my name is Emily O'Leary and I am the engineering manager at Aqua Water Supply Corporation. As I shared on the previous hearing, Aqua's service area continues to grow rapidly, both in residential development and in commercial demand. That growth directly translates into a greater need for reliable long-term water supplies. Again, while we're working on several alternative water source projects such as brackish and potential regional interconnects, new groundwater production remains the most economical and immediately available option for increasing our supplies. The S12 well that we're calling the Pacheco well is proposed on the same property where Aqua is constructing our new operations center, a project that reflects how much we've grown as both an organization and as a community. As our service area expands, so does our need for additional staff, facilities, and water supply to support that growth. Because we were already developing that site for our warehouse and operations facility, it made sense to also evaluate the site's potential for groundwater production. Aqua already holds a permit for the boat right well, which is the S10 well that is located on the back of the property. However, that well was included in our aggregate West S well field authorization, which caps instantaneous production at approximately 75 100 gallons per minute for the well field. During periods of high demand, we need additional flexibility to increase our instantaneous production. In particular, the S12 or Pacheco application therefore represents a request for new water beyond that existing cap. The S12 application requests authorization for new production with a proposed instantaneous rate of 1,500 gallons per minute and an annual production of 1,700 acres. Again, Aqua shares the district's mission to balance resource sustainability with community needs. We believe that the S12 project achieves that balance and represents a responsible investment in the continued reliability of our system. On behalf of Aqua's members, I respectfully request approval of the S12 production total. Thank you for your time and consideration. Happy to answer any questions while I'm up here.
So your new operation facility is going to be located out on Highway 304, right by these wells.
Yes, it's about, I think, a mile south of our existing well field.
Will it be right on the highway?
I mean, not right on the highway, probably about 40 feet back from the road. Thank you.
And Gretchen Miller, LRE Water, Representative District. We, in addition to modeling this, we have modeled S12, and as mentioned before, this is 1,500 GPM at 1,700 acre feet per year. The well is seen in the figure along Highway 304, and it would be a new S field well. Again, this is additional to the S field current aggregate. So we've modeled it as additional pumping on top of that existing S field permits, as opposed to being a marginal change. This is an entirely new. The drilling permit is currently to 1,000 feet, but after discussions with Aqua WSC, we have anticipated that the total depth will probably be at 740 feet based on our geologic modeling, and that we have been told that this will be targeting the Simsboro formation. And then it's common not to know exactly how deep needs to be drilled to complete a well through the entire formation. And so we have assumed that the production interval on this in our modeling will be roughly equivalent to that of the layer in the GAN model. And that is between 280 and 740 feet. Of course, as they're drilling this, the design may change based on the geology, which we can only know so well before. In this case, we have some nearby wells as well. You see number 1 in the star here is S12. I believe 2 and 3 are on there, are in our database related to S10 that was mentioned a little bit ago. And then the other falls are domestic, mostly domestic, and then a livestock and irrigation well within that 5,000 foot. Aqua has provided us with the pump test data from the S10 Cody test well. And based on the recovery data, they are seeing lower transmissivity, which is the ability of the aquifer to transmit water, than what the model has, by about a third. That is not an uncommon finding. There is a decent amount of uncertainty in the GAM, and it can impact the modeling. Typically, transmissivity that is lower would mean that the cone of depression of the drawdown in the near vicinity of the well would be much steeper than anticipated. But given that the total volume of water being extracted is the same, the shape of the cone changes, but the overall volume. We simulated this. You can see TS4-1 is the baseline model that we used for this. And the one on the right is S12 addition here. This would be the second highest of the pumping wells in the S field base as compared to the model. And it would be equivalent to, or would be higher than the current S3, that would be equivalent to the new S3. Looking at some of what we looked at before, you can see the aquifer layers. I don't have the screen on here. Again, we don't know where it is yet. And you can see the change in the overall water elevation in this area based on the S12 addition and the S3 and the S12 combined. There are two lines there, but it really functionally does not make a difference adding that S3 well. The results are very similar. Attributable drawdown at the S12 well is roughly 25 feet of drawdown attributable to this additional pumping. There is already a decent amount of pumping in the S field area. And so this is superimposed on top of that pumping, but does include all that new thought. Looking at this, you can see how it's distributed over the area. Most of it is concentrated in the near field where there are changes of 20 up to 25 feet. And you see the extent of it on here. That the cone depression grows over the next 44 years, but the maximum stays relatively the same because it's at the center of the well. So looking at the impacts this has on other nearby wells, we're predicting based on the GAM, anywhere between 9 and 15 feet of additional drawdown at these nearby wells that are not owned by us. This does make some changes to the overall flows in the model. Primarily, it brings in more water from the Calvert Bluff layer and above. Right, so this is the Calvert Bluff layer above the Simsboro. So we're inducing vertical flows from the Calvert Bluff layer and also inducing some flows from the what we call the shallow flow layer, the outcrop area, and we're reducing some of the outflows to other counties, but given the location, it doesn't necessarily impact outside the GCT, but just in the area around it by the flow numbers. One comment I would have on this is there is some uncertainty in how much vertical flow can be introduced from the Calvert Bluff layer. There's some recent work on the confining lignite layers. So this is subject to some uncertainty that the model is actually capturing. So in summary on this, based on the GAM, we have 25 feet of additional or of drawdown at the well location and 9 to 15 additional feet within 5,000 at wells within 5,000 feet. Similarly, though, water levels in 2070 in the model show that we have about 78 feet of remaining artesian head, which is 39% of the 2011 value. So local aquifer test data does indicate that there may be lower transmissivity. This is from the S10 well, which is that number 3 and 2, it's on the same property, correct? Yeah, it's on the same property, so they are fairly close. Now, changes in transmissivity over that length, are possible, right? So the value could be up to 30,000 as opposed to 10,000 that was seen at S12, S10. They will not know until they drill it and produce pump test data and submit that to you, which is my recommendation. That if this well is approved, that pump test data be submitted. Other notes, the water is obtained from the Simsboro outcrop, and I didn't mention this earlier, but a vast majority of it from storage. So it's just essentially pulling that and reducing the pressure in the aquifer. It's also pulled from the Calvert Bluff and underlying. That questions?
For any of the wells that you develop and the outcrop likely to go.
Looking at so we see the total depth. We need to. I'm sorry, I can't answer that question right off the bat. These mitigation questions are excellent. That's something we haven't looked at previously. Yes, thank you. That's an excellent point. The shallowest well here is this 280, which compared to what we predict for
Why is their well going to be at least 210 feet deeper than the deepest? I'm just curious.
Because homeowners typically don't drill through the whole aquifer layer. So
they're going where most people.
Exactly. So when you have a well that you need to produce at this volume, as opposed to a homeowner well, which might be 10 GPM, 15, 20, somewhere in there, they need more length of screen. They need more length of intake to make an efficient well. As opposed to a homeowner, they need 20, 30 feet, 20 feet into the aquifer, and that could be sufficient for them. But it does have its risks when you're talking about neighboring drawdown.
And so with the lower trends.
And utility.
Yes, right.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean they have to have more screened area?
It means that more screened area would be beneficial for them, but I don't know that they would think for design based. It depends on when you do testing, but typically we put screen in first and then you test the well. So most of the time, I can't say how their engineer will design it, but most of the time I would design it so it goes through the entire interval with a well this size. Yes, we know that.
Who they are?
Yes, this is the list and the depths of their wells. At the 280 feet, they are probably right at the start, or maybe have 20 feet into the aquifer. But unless, we don't know where their pump is, so they could potentially need mitigation if their pump is not high enough, or excuse me, low enough. But we do not predict that dewatering, that the well will go below the artesian or go below the top of the aquifer. So we wouldn't predict that well would go dry, but perhaps the pump would need to be lowered.
Yeah, we're talking 30 grand or so.
As far as lowering the pump,
No,
No,
it's
new
a
well.
new well.
a new well, I wouldn't expect that to happen in this circumstance, because if they are below the level of the aquifer, we are not showing that this will draw water below the top of the aquifer. I would, it's not impossible, but I would find it much more likely that what will happen first is that their pump would need to be lowered, which is still a cost, but not like drilling.
Any more questions? Does anyone else have any more comments? Anyone on the internet want to comment on this hearing?
Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi there.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Scott Bryant. I live in the range of one of these wells, almost almost both of them. My question is y'all have provided a lot of data, and I appreciate the data. However, my question is what drivers can affect that data, and what is LRE an independent company? Did Aqua hire them to provide this study? Or who hired them to provide this study to provide all the data? And my question is what drivers are going to affect or change that data? As I see that you are stretching out 44 years, which I appreciate, but I assume that in 5 years, if demand increases, Aqua is going to be wanting to put more straws in the ground to pull more water. Is this we're putting in 2 wells and we expect it to last 44 years, or are y'all planning on this is the first stage of many?
Mr.
Because
Bryant,
we all know that data can be affected positively or negatively depending on certain factors, and I think there's a lot of factors that could be brought into this.
I'm going to have our interim general manager explain to everyone who LRE is.
Yes. LRB Water is the district's consultant. So they are hired by the Lost Pines District. They've been our consultant for almost 4 years now, and they provide for us hydrogeologic services, including assessments of permits and helping us out with modeling and permitting. So they are hired by the Lost Pines.
Thank you.
And to your second question, there is drawdown occurring not just by Aqua. We are expecting drawdowns all throughout the district, both at Bastrop and Lee County, due to many permits, recharge, gatehouse, Aqua, even from outside the district, from Post Oak, Savannah, and Vista Ridge, and from to our south. So there are production and pumping going on both within our district and outside the district, which will be generating drawdown in Bastrop and Lee County. The data we have a monitoring network. So we have a network of monitoring wells that we go out and gauge twice a year. We put all that data in our database. We also have models, groundwater availability models from the state of Texas that's used. So yes, data is critical and getting good data. And so we are investing quite a bit of money in our monitoring network and in our database and in collection of data. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it did. I appreciate. Thank you for your response. With data, everybody knows that it can change rapidly. I mean, NASA can't even predict an asteroid, it could hit in 3 years or can hit tomorrow. So with data, it changes. It's a evolving daily type machine.
Absolutely. That's why we're spending quite a bit of money to improve our monitoring network and our database. And it's just an ongoing effort that we have here to improve that.
Yeah. Okay. I appreciate your answer.
All right, thank you. Okay, anyone else? Then we are going to close this hearing at 4:40 p.m. We're gonna move on down to number 4, the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion or action on these items unless requested by a board director. Does anyone on the board want to remove anything? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Although,
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes. Moving on to regular agenda item 5. A, are there any announcements? Not hearing any. I would recommend that we now go into executive session. Do it to the Texas Government Code section 551.071. Any closed session permitted by law regarding the district's pending contemplated litigation, or regarding revisions to the district rules as described in item 5E, or to consult with the attorneys and seek advice regarding the applications by Aquawater Supply Corporation that's described in items 5C and 5D. We're going to go into executive session at 4. All right, it's 5:20 p.m. and we returned from executive session and we're going to go back into our regular meeting. We're back on the agenda. We're going to item 5E, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the proposed revisions to the district's rules to amend sections 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 13, 14, and 15.
I would make a motion to approve the rules as presented with the following non-substantive changes. 3.1.A1, add 25,000 gallons per day limit. 5.2C, the maximum allowed through the GM is 2. 6.4B, you're withdrawing that proposed rule. 8.3B, you're withdrawing that proposed change. 10.4A, we're changing the language from landowner to.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the rules as amended, subject to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 changes that were alliterated by Director Cole. All in favor?
aye.
All opposed? All right, the motion has passed. We will be adopting those rules as so noted. Okay, we're moving over to number 5C, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding application by Aquawater Supply Corporation for an operating permit amendment to withdraw 1,200 feet of water per year in Bastrop County used for public and municipal purposes.
Does that let them put it in other counties?
I think there were 3 counties.
You said Bastrop County.
No, the well is in Bastrop County,
Oh, okay.
but the use is, I think, in
Okay.
Bastrop and 2 adjacent counties. Thank you for asking. I move that we. That's right. Okay, we have a motion second to approve the application and variance filed for this operating permit amendment. In favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item 5D, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding application by Aqua Water Supply Corporation for an operating permit to withdraw 1,700 acre-feet of water per year in Bastrop County to be used for municipal purposes.
I move that we approve the draft permit and the variance associated with the 1,700 acre-feet of water permitted by Aqua Water Supply.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve this operating permit and the variance associated therewith. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, the motion seconded and passes. Item 5E, discussion, consideration, and possible action on the Austin Water Aquifer Storage and Recovery Collaboration Agreement. And I want to remind you that we have some public comments to be made.
Let's start with that.
Let's start with Mr. Mark Wyatt. He has provided you with some comments. He wants to make some verbal comments. Mr. Wyatt?
Good afternoon, members of the board. I'm Mark Wyatt. Probably not on. I think it turns off when we go to executive session. Sure. Then talk real fast. There you go. Turn on.
Afternoon, members of the board. I'm Mark Wyatt, a landowner and water well user in northern Bastrop County. I'm commenting today on behalf of Protect Bastrop County Water, group of over 130 concerned citizens. I wanted to express my concern with signing Austin Water's Aquifer Storage and Recovery Collaboration Agreement. I make these comments in support of our previous request that the district, on behalf of the affected citizens in Bastrop County, publicly and officially oppose this ASR project by all means possible. I know under state law, the district does not have the authority to issue or deny a permit. However, we all know politically the district's official stance on this ASR project is very important and carries considerable political weight and influence. I will say again, politically, you are viewed as the guardians of our aquifers, and your position and action will make a difference, particularly in the upcoming legislative session. Therefore, I want to point out that on page 4, section 5D, the agreement says a signer will, quote, take no action to prevent the completion of phase 1D field testing without first raising concerns at a meeting of partners and stakeholders to discuss and address the concerns of the party. Also on page 2, section 5A, says the signer, when discussing the ASR project, must address possible benefits. These provisions will negatively limit any public opposition by the district. The provisions will, by their very nature, have a significant suppressing effect, and were undoubtedly put in the agreement to lessen any public expression of opposition to the project. I will point out that Mr. Kirkland, Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Bastrop, said at the recent Chamber of Commerce meeting, in his opinion, this agreement, using his words, not mine, puts a stakeholder who signs it in shackles. The collaboration agreement should be revised to make clear that signing this agreement does not preclude expressing public opposition to the ASR project and working with the legislature next session to prevent it. Second, once the district signs the agreement, it cannot drop out. It is a binding contract. It can only be modified by all parties if all parties agree, and Austin Water will not agree to anyone dropping out. The agreement should provide a means for a stakeholder to drop out with proper written notice. Third, while it says Austin Water will not seek a groundwater permit from the district, it does not say they will never use the ASR infrastructure, particularly the massive transfer pipelines, to seek a permit for additional water in the future. There is no doubt that this ASR infrastructure will be the least source of additional water in the future, and Austin Water will feel a fiduciary duty to use it instead of the more costly alternatives of building a new source of water. The collaboration agreement should say they will never use any related infrastructure, including the pipelines, to seek a permit from the district in the future. Thank you for this opportunity.
Next up is Sherry Wyatt.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Black Pines Groundwater Conservation District for allowing us to provide comments today about the ASR project. My name is Sherry Wyatt. I'm with the Protect Bastrop County Water. My husband Mark Wyatt and I are landowners in Page. We use our well water for our homes water. Due to the shortness of time, I'd like to focus on 2 points. The stakeholders' lack of transparency and opposition. Since we found out about the ASR project in August, I thought both the stakeholders would have have our best interests of Bastrop County citizens at heart and would adamantly oppose such an atrocity project. I've soon realized now most of them don't because they feel they have no authority in the matter. The only stakeholder that has publicly opposed this project so far is Bastrop City Council. There's been no discussion about lawsuits or other measures to oppose the project. Stakeholders' comments like, well, we need to have a seat at the table and, well, we need to see the science. This gives the perception that the stakeholders are trying to stay in good terms with Austin Water and not really opposing the project. Recommendations. Resolution opposing the ASR project and amendments to the agreement. If Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District feels like it has to sign the agreement, we recommend the following. 1, before signing the agreement, pass a resolution opposing the ASR project. 2, before signing the agreement, have your attorney revise the language, giving you the ability to remove your organization at any time from the contract. Have your attorney also really review the agreement. I'm not an attorney, but when I read this agreement, it is one-sided and should be revised for you as the benefit for it. And number 3, finally, before signing the agreement, amend page 2, 5B. Revise it so that all meetings are open to the public, including the technical group meeting. Please oppose this ASR project, and I really thank you for your time to consider it.
Okay, now we have Lisa Willman.
Lisa Wellman, I'm a resident living just south of the proposed ASR project on Meeting Road, almost near Page, but in Smithville legally. I want to thank you for the very, very important work that you do to ensure that we have the natural resources that we need for us, for Bastrop County. I'm asking you to carefully consider and oppose the permitting of Austin Water. We have made this intent known. Austin's proposal to inject treated water in the Carrizo Wilcox Aquifer is risky experiment with long-term consequences with our communities. It threatens water quality, increases seismic risk, and undermines the sustainability of our resource that took thousands of years to form, and will be needed for our future growth, which is massive for Bastrop County. Just as I'm sure you have heard, you are more involved in this than I have just become aware of. The water quality risks, and my husband will speak more to that. Research backs this from other ASR projects in Florida, California, and San Antonio. I don't think anyone here wants to replicate California. 25% of the country's ASR projects have failed and are abandoned. In fact, Lee County officials rejected the same proposal in 2023, citing unresolved water quality concerns. Studies from the University of Texas and the U.S. Geological Survey show a clear link between large volume injection and induced earthquakes across Texas, including hundreds of events in the Delaware Basin in the West Texas area, where we're from and are familiar with all the water injection that happens through oil and gas industry. This is within 2014, since 2014. We lack the localized fault data to ensure Bastrop County would be immune from similar seismic effects, and that affects all of us, every property on the surface. Environmental and community impacts. Austin Water would need to control thousands of rural acres, potentially affecting property rights, agricultural wells, and local ecosystems. We are one of those agricultural wells. We raise cattle on our property. The Texas Water Development Board already reports declining water levels in the Carrizo Wilcox from heavy municipal and agricultural use. The project would only add pressure to an already stressed system, just heard about Aquawater and their need to continue to support the massive growth of Bastrop. Austin's problem is not Bastrop County's to solve. The people of Lee County took a stand to protect their groundwater, and I'm asking that Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District do the same for Bastrop County. You are the guardians of our aquifer. Please stand firm, protect our local water rights and our natural resources. We have a beautiful Lost Pines area. Let's protect it. I do appreciate your time. Our aquifer is not a storage tank for the city of Austin. It is the livelihood of our region. Once damaged, once accessed, we can't go back. I expect you to be steadfast and determined in your opposition and resistance to Aquawater. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilman. And our final speaker is Mike Wilman.
Good evening. My name's Mike Flynn, and I live in Bastrop County. I'm here to oppose the Austin Water's plan to pump treated water in our local aquifer in Bastrop County. Let's be clear, this proposal is not about protecting water, it's about exporting. Austin wants to use our aquifer as a storage tank for surplus treated water. They get control of the water, we take the risk. First, let's talk about science and data. Bastrop County sits over the Wilcox Aquifer, a complex natural system that took thousands of years to form. Once contaminated or chemically altered, it cannot easily recover. Injecting treated water, even if it meets drinking standards, can change the natural chemistry, temperature, pressure of the formation. In Florida, ASR projects cause mobilization of arsenic and other minerals due to reaction between injected water and native geology. California, several ASRs were shut down after injected water didn't return as clean as it went in. Austin Water cannot guarantee this won't happen here. Second, let's talk about control and accountability. This project would let a city outside our county withdraw water from our aquifer, a resource that belongs to Bastrop County residents, farmers, and future generations. Once the injection starts, we lose control of monitoring and long-term impacts. Who pays if something goes wrong? Who restores the aquifer if it's damaged? History shows that these systems are expensive to monitor and nearly impossible to fix once contamination spreads underground. Third, local impacts. The hydrology of Bastrop County is already stressed. Many residents rely on shallow wells. Changes in aquifer pressure or chemistry could lower local well yields, alter flow directions, and threaten water quality. Even small changes can ripple across decades. Finally, bigger picture. Austin has alternatives. The city can expand surface water storage, conservation, stormwater capture, all without putting another community's aquifer at risk. ASR is a shortcut that shifts the burden of rural neighbors. Didn't ask for this project. In summary, the science is uncertain, the risks are local. Benefits go to Austin, not Bastrop. We urge our county officials, water district, to protect our aquifer, demand full transparency, and say no to Austin's water ASR project in Bastrop County. Our groundwater is not Austin's storage tank, it's our lifeline. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Wilman. Do we have any more speakers? Mr. Hernandez, please.
Yes, I wanted to say a few words because through the months, as you know, I've been giving you folks updates periodically at our board meetings. So I feel that I needed to take a moment here and for the record, kind of give a summary of how we got here and what's happened. So this all started early April. April 7th, we met at the state capitol. The behest of Representative Gertis, who got the stakeholders together along with Austin Water. So we all met for the first time over at the state capitol, and we discussed how to move forward. At that time, we were discussing the bigger picture, the whole, everything, the whole kit and caboodle. You know, we're talking about the big thing, their phasing and their long-term proposals. We met every 2 weeks from April through June, roughly. I think we're up to meeting number 10. I think we had just recently. During all those discussions, we brought up, we being the stakeholders, myself being one of the primary vocal leaders of the stakeholder group, and Mr. Andy Weir, amongst others. And so at that time, it was the city of Bastrop, County Bastrop, ourselves, SADF, and then during the months proceeding afterwards, other stakeholders got involved, like Lee County Water Supply and City of Smithville, for example, joined a few months after we first started these negotiations. All these issues about the chemistry and the concerns were all brought up many, many times by the stakeholders. We did not ask for this. We did not want this. This was thrown upon us. Okay, according to state law, section 36.5454 in chapter 36 says, under permitting, spacing, and production requirements, that B, a district may not require a permit for the drilling, equipping, operation, or completion of an ASR injection well or an ASR recovery well that is authorized by the commission. So basically, we have no local control over this. We have no say. It's going to happen with or without us, because we have the state law that says the TCEQ authorizes and controls the permitting of these types of projects. We have no local control. So the issue is then, if you have no control, then do you want a seat at the table or not? So there's two issues. In June, I was very vocal in complaining that our comments and our feedback was not being incorporated into their revisions of the proposal. Then in June, Austin Water changed their focus and began to just focus on the phase 1B, which is the next 2 to 3 years. Phase 1B poses no harm to the aquifers. There is no injection of any water. It is purely drilling 2 test holes, pulling up samples, and doing laboratory testing. That is phase 1B. That is what they focused their agreement as of June, about early June. They then changed the documentation. They focused solely on that short-term phase 1B, and they made the agreement a binding agreement. They put in this agreement several things that we were able to negotiate with them, things that Austin Water had been committing to us all throughout this process. So a lot of items have been brought up before, eminent domain, and that Austin Water would not seek any additional groundwater permits from the Lost Pines. And they will not proceed with applying for a TCEQ permit until the completion of the phase 1B. So there are certain things that they did commit to. They put that in writing. We spent months to negotiate this, and our legal counsel has been involved, and legal has reviewed this draft agreement. So there's 2 issues at hand. What is the long-term issue? And the phase, what they call phase, what Austin Water calls is phase 2, which is the actual testing using injection. And that certainly we have tons of concerns over. The chemistry, impacts to neighboring wells, the mitigation, what's going to happen. So the phase 2 is a separate issue. There's going to have to be additional contracts to deal with all those concerns. Right now, what's before you is the phase 1B agreement, the binding agreement regarding phase 1B, and that is the short term. What do we do in the next 2 to 3 years? Some things to note is that when Representative Gertis's bill went into the Senate committee, Senate Chair Perry stated about this project that this project will be science driven, and that if the science proves it in, this project will go forward. So that came from the senators over in Austin, and that is the Senate position of the Chair Perry, that the only way this project is going to not be completed is if the science proves that it can't be completed. It will be science driven.
We get to bring our science into the first.
Right. So if we sign this agreement, it'll give us and Dr. Miller a seat at the table. She will be working hand in hand with Austin Water. It's going to be more than just oversight. Because in oversight, you come in, you take a look around, and then you leave. We're not leaving. We're there. We're working with them. We're going to be able to have a say in the types of tests, the number of tests, and the testing criteria for success and failure. At the end of, and the reason why they brought up the issue, folks brought up the issue of that we can't stop this once it starts. Why would we? We're collecting data that could potentially be used to stop the project. So why would we want to stop this after we started it? We want all this data because if this data doesn't come satisfactorily, then we have the data and the science to go to the legislature and to others and say, this can't occur. We can't do this. The science doesn't prove it out. So
is the contract strictly for phase 1? I mean, when people say you cannot remove your organization from the contract, you're just signing something for phase 1, and phase 2 would involve a different contract.
Absolutely. This is purely for phase 1B.
Why would we want to remove?
I don't know of any reason for the phase 1B. Once we start, I don't know any reason why we wouldn't want this to continue to fruition.
Well, I think it's because it appears that we're behind the project.
But we're not. This is a totally separate issue.
Just saying what the appearance is.
Well, but folks need to realize that there's a long term and there's the short term. And so this purely is going to give us a seat at the tables, and Dr. Miller can represent us. And then once all that data is collected, we will have a say in the recommendation. The technical team will have a recommendation. Then the non-technical stakeholders will have a second recommendation. And the third recommendation is from Austin Water. And those 3 recommendations then go to the Austin City Council to determine whether or not to fund the phase 2. So this is purely phase 1B, and it's purely laboratory testing. And this provides us a seat at the table. If we're not at the table, we're probably on the menu. Okay? And I said that to the Bastrop Chamber of Commerce. The cities and counties, they're looking to us to represent their interests, right? We are the aquifer experts. During the whole stakeholder process these past months, they would turn to us and they would look to us because we are the experts. They don't know about the aquifers and the down dip and subcrop and outcrop, right? They look to us to represent their interests. So I would like to say that. Also, I want to say that SAWDEF has approved this agreement. Austin Aqua Water has also unanimously approved this agreement just recently. So it's when SAWDEF approves of something like this, there's merit behind this.
Would you say that by signing this does not take down or approve of the?
Correct. We are not approving the ASR project. In fact, we passed a resolution in support of Representative Gertis's bill. When Representative Gertis first filed this bill, we approved a resolution to support that bill. I lobbied at the House in support of Representative Gertis. The bill was to stop the ASR project. I forgot the exact number of the House. It was a House bill. That was the bill that I was referring to that went to the Senate committee and it died on the Senate floor. I think on the very last day of or the next to last day of legislation. And that's when Chair Perry made his statement about this project, that this project will be science driven. So the question is, do you want a seat at the table to be able to have a recommendation and to be able to dictate to some extent the types of tests, the quality of the test, and the test criteria. And then for us to have a recommendation as part of that technical group.
Elvis,
Yes.
for the previous commenters that were against the ASR, well, Austin Water knows that the Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District supported Curtis's bill that we are against the ASR project.
Yes.
Yes. Elvis was also, even though Senator Gertis's bill did not,
Representative
Gertis's bill.
I'm sure he would love to be a senator one day.
I'm gonna promote him one day. But he has the option of resurrecting a bill similar to that in the next legislation. So that is still on the table. And as part of going to the stakeholder meetings and meeting with Gertis's folks, that was something that was made clear.
Yeah, and you attended a couple of those.
I was there.
Meetings. You were there, I believe, when Representative Curtis was there as a result of my letter. So I had sent a letter in early June, really being very vocal against our comments not being incorporated. And then the very next meeting, we had representation from Representative Curtis was actually at the meeting. And it was at that meeting where we told Austin Water, there was some language in here that was very disturbing, that would have muzzled us. And Representative Curtis and myself said, that is a non-starter, you have to take that verbiage out. They manipulated the words, and our legal counsel took a look at it. They felt good that it's not going to muzzle us at all. We're going to be able to say whatever we want to say, negative or positive, about this project moving forward. We are not muzzled.
We want to do a press release to that effect.
Well, we believe we are not muzzled at all.
I know it's the press release is very clear.
And that was brought up at the stakeholder meetings that they're not going to be able to, they're not stopping us from talking one way or the other.
Sure.
Okay. Well, thank you.
One question. A lot of the, especially when the ASM here, was about eminent domain. Did that wording get changed? They said they wouldn't, or they weren't planning on it.
Yeah.
To say thou shalt not.
Yes, that's been a concern from day one on April 7th when you brought this up. And
Director Phillips Burgess, Section 4C, it directly states that the City of Austin will not use eminent domain to acquire land in Bastrop County with regard to the ASR project discussed in this agreement.
But that did get fixed.
That made it in here. And I just want to add also at the back of this document, I think it's 4E or 5E states that if the City of Austin proceeds past this phase 1B, additional contracts and agreements between all the parties and who stays involved, and those stakeholders will have to be agreed to and drafted up if they decide to proceed past this field testing stage.
Yeah, there's many other contracts that will be needed if this proceeds.
One thing that was left out in terms of that eminent domain statement was it's only for the purchase of the 700-acre property. They did not say they would not use eminent domain to construct the pipeline.
They told us that in the stakeholder meetings. They've said that eminent domain applies to the pipeline and the 7,000 acres. But as Sylvia Carrillo of the City of Bastrop has repeatedly stated, that this is only as good as the city council. If there's a new mayor and if there's a new council, they can change their minds. So that is certainly of concern, is that this statement that they will not use eminent domain is only as good as this particular council and this particular mayor and the next council could change.
If this is a contract, how can a new mayor change it?
Well, first of all, this contract is just for the phase 1B.
Right.
That, the eminent domain is gonna have to be dealt with if this moves forward.
It's in a different phase.
Yeah, it's in the phase 2, and if this does move forward, we're gonna have a lot of work before us on many issues, many remediation bonds, remediation plans, eminent domain, and getting all that language prepared. It's gonna be, so again, this was kind of been just thrown on us.
Threshold.
Yep, I mean, this was unexpected, right? Obviously, this is costing us time and money, between council and traveling and meeting, and it was unexpected, but, we have to do it.
So do we need a motion to approve signing this agreement?
We would.
Yeah, I have a question. So if, the public cannot attend the technical group meetings, they have access to the reports and the information of these group meetings?
Yes, they will have access to all the data that comes out of these meetings. Yes.
So all of these concerns. They have seen.
In my opinion, I recommend that the district sign this particular agreement to provide us a seat at the table.
We're gonna have Gretchen Miller on the technical. She will transmit everything to us and to the public also. We can put it on our website.
Yeah, it's very good. Website.
In addition to consultants representing this stakeholder, there will be technical experts, Austin Water, but also there's a provision in there that there are going to be independent people on there. In other words, people who really don't have a dog in either fight. And we're working on the detail of how to advertise for those other technical consultants.
Paid for by the city of Austin.
No, they're not gonna be paid for by the city of Austin. They're not gonna be paid for by Lost Pines. And I've been working, Dr. Miller, on ways that we can put forth to Austin Water. And we're gonna hold to that. So we have another seat at that table that's not formally set up, but it's like, no, this is the deal.
I can tell, I know that SADF will have representation. They will have a representation at the technical group, as will Aqua Water. They'll have like their hydrology.
Yes, they'll have, yes, other stakeholders will have other folks on there. So this isn't gonna be a 2 or 3 person, this is gonna be a group of accredited scientists, licensed professional hydrologists, professional geologists, professional engineers, academics, people who know what's going on.
Move that the Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District sign the agreement with the stakeholder on the Austin Water Aquifer Storage and Recovery Phase 1.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second that the district sign on as a stakeholder on the Austin Water Aquifer Storage and Recovery Collaboration Agreement. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Item 5F, discussions, consideration, and possible action regarding professional services contract and modification agreement with LRE Water and Spiros Environmental for hydrogeology services. They have, I guess, contracted to be purchased by another group or go into business with another. You want to tell us about that, or Attorney's tell us about it.
Yeah, I think Dr. Miller wanted to say a couple of
Oh,
words.
fine.
Please turn on the microphone. I turned it off.
Is it on?
Yes.
Yes. I just wanted to briefly address the board to, one, explain our name change, and to two, thank you for the continuing partnership with you all. First, the Spiros Environmental is going to be our new name as of January 1st. Spiros is being formed by actually the merger of several different companies, LRE Water, a company called Sonoma Tech, who does air quality and monitoring and modeling, and another company, Eco Analysts, that does surface water quality and environmental permitting. And so we have a few others as well joining us. It's forming, coming together for one company that will offer more services. So we're excited to start this as of January 1st. Get a new polo. But really, we don't see many changes here actually happening in the Texas office, except for maybe getting into some air quality. We're excited about that. Second, I just wanted to thank you all for the continuing honor to serve you through as your hydrogeologist. I really enjoyed working with you all over the last year and a half, and look forward to working with you in the future. I enjoy your questions and helping discuss these issues, and I look forward to helping serve on this ASR technical committee too. So again,
thank you. Your materials on these off-water permits were very thorough and very helpful.
Glad to hear that. Thank you.
Okay, well, everyone has a copy of this in your packet. It's pretty straightforward. Just approving our agreement with LRB1.
I will move to approve modified agreement.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the modification of our agreement with LRB Water. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion. Item 5G, discussion and consideration of possible action regarding legislative representation services contract with GM Ellis Law Firm PC.
Sure, I'll speak to Greg's contract in his absence. This is a, as you know, Mr. Ellis, Mr. Ellis provides legislative services to the district. He also sometimes provides legal services. This contract is not for his legal services. It is for his function as the district's lobbyist. And the term of this contract begins January 1st, 2026, and extends basically a 2-year period to the end of 2027. And it's intended to cover the interim session coming up in January of 2026, and then also the legislative session for 2027. It looks to me that the fees are about the same or close. It's $64,000 for that period. If it's basically a re-up of his prior contract.
We'll move. Second.
I have
Discussion.
yes. 8B. I think it is work documentation. It should, the contract is for what he has done and should have approved with the board. You know, the legislature's not against.
There's sometimes meetings around the state.
Well, that and, you know, there are things going on in the Capitol now. Lobbyists, he's attending those, he's, our representatives, whatever, our other consultants, give us monthly statements about their work, what they're up to. It keeps us apprised of what's going on, aside of what you might read in the paper, things that are coming up. I just think for them, like the rest of them, we should be documented.
Well, I will say, since I've been on board, Greg has just been an excellent source of information about the legislature, and he is an excellent lobbyist in our behalf. He has really accomplished, and sometimes people who do this sort of work seasonally, and who knows, how all that works, but they're not the same people who can crank out monthly reports. Bean counting, they come and they go, they ebb and they flow with the work. Sometimes he works 72 hours straight and is calling in to us or to Elvis or to Natasha with reports on a bill we're following. And, it's real intense at sometimes, and there'd be a long report to us, but sometimes nothing going on. So it becomes sort of busy work.
So it's not like he's reporting our work. It's just a general concept.
Right. But we
Hour
have
by hour report.
but we have an established relationship with him and know his work.
Understand, but it doesn't.
Well, I did agree that.
Not only that, but we get reports from him regular basis. I'm not gonna say every month we have a report. But he's in contact with this organization on a regular basis. He appears for us on a regular basis, if not, telephone. And, as long as he keeps what he's doing, I have no reason to believe that he wouldn't keep what he's doing. And if we tell him he got to keep what he's doing, he may quit.
I don't think he's in great shape.
We don't want him to quit.
We don't want him to quit. I'm just saying that a standard contract needs to be followed.
I believe he does do monthly reportings during the legislative session. We hear from him every month during the session. So if that's an amendment you wanted to make to this, I think that's reasonable. And it's not always in writing. A lot of times it's during these meetings.
Regular report.
Well, regularly.
Are you, or Elvis or somebody getting reports from him outside of the legislative session?
He will tell us when there are developments with the interim charges, and that's actually coming up. And I believe he has reported to Elvis.
He's asked to be on the November agenda for next month.
Well, I don't think it would be too much just like if he goes to an interim meeting for him to let us know. And it's great that you know, but.
Yeah, I just found out today, so just occurred today.
I would like to add some of those words. That he has a reporting schedule and it doesn't go to just someone. That type of thing.
Okay, well, I'm going to suggest that we table this matter until the appropriate changes can get made to it. Agree to, however, we do have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the one that's here, so I don't know how we want to handle that.
Well, I have a couple of questions. I have a couple.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
want
We're in the discussion phase.
Okay, fine.
that, I also think that we should have some kind of knowledge or approval prior to sensitive or law legislative requests. Some of the things that were sent don't get back to the board. Things that were asked to be fixed. I think those should be shared. Or they get to the house. That and there are 2 items of things that the general manager. The interim will put the finance right away. Also, case title for president. It should be accurate as he.
So prior to execution, we can correct the titles and the roles, and also the names. I probably would make a point of contact under 9, general manager. Or interim general manager, yeah, so just general. Right.
You said Greg is going to be here in
November.
so he could be here in person.
Yes, Greg stated to me that he'd be fine with tabling this till November.
Since there's a motion already on the floor.
Yeah, you have a live motion, so.
We have a live motion.
In a second, so you can table, postpone, which is taking no action, or you can take action. So the president would call for a vote.
Is there urgency to have this approved today?
No.
So that everybody's.
No worries.
No, I would recommend a postpone versus a tabling.
Okay, well, let's post.
Well, I tell you, since council has recommended this be tabled, I will withdraw the motion.
There you go.
Mr. Cement. Always fun to get to use Robert's rules.
This matter will reappear next month. Next time.
Next time.
Committee report. Financial Services Committee.
We are set for October 30.
October 30th meeting.
3:30 here.
And we're all wearing masks, which is.
Governance
That-
Committee,
that's
that's your
committee
name.
meeting, not-
Governance.
You.
Me, well, our committee met and we discussed all the items that are on today's agenda.
There you go.
Infrastructure Committee, Mrs.
Okay, the Infrastructure Committee met on October 2nd here in Giddings. Took a look at the side parking lot, see what we could come up with to stem the flow of traffic since it's basically being used as an alleyway. We decided the first step was to have our corners surveyed because we did not know our exact boundaries. And we discussed options to create a barrier to through traffic. We talked about our new roof. Kintex is working on placing the material order and has let Peggy know that their start date is the 16th. Tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, we'll have the roofers start.
All right. We talked about our mitigation program and we talked about how our dollars left in that program probably aren't going to go terribly far. And we thought about approaching Post Oak, Savannah Groundwater Conservation District about helping us with some of that. We gave approval to Elvis to purchase a new well camera with a warranty. Elvis has ordered a wrap for our new district vehicle with our name and logo, so people will know who he is when he drives on their property. We're going to get recommendations from LRE as to which tests they feel are the most important to do for groundwater quality testing. Assess their costs and make decisions as which to apply to our program. The well database improvements is an ongoing project. Texas Water Development Board would like our data to be uploaded to their database. LRE's going to do that. We talked about a policy for exempt well permits under 10 acres. We're going to discuss the need for a policy and decide we'd like to involve our hydrogeologists in giving us direction, creating them. Good.
Do we have the Education Outreach Coordinators report?
Yes, Mayor had to leave because of a prior engagement. Let's go very quickly. Rainwater Harvesting 101 workshop on September 20th had a great turnout. Beautiful sustainable home garden show. We had 25 newsletter registrations and 1 well watch registration. Meetings that are upcoming: invasive species and native tree workshop on October 20th, for Lewis Dinner and Summit, October 23rd. Presentation for the Lexington Rotary, October 28th. Lee County fourth grade Ag Awareness Day, November 10th. Just updates on programs, the rainwater harvesting rebate program, we received 12 applications, approved 10, declined 2. We've inspected and actually released the rebate money to the others still in progress. 38,700 is reserved for the current applicants, leaving 61,300 in funding for future systems. The agricultural flow meter program, first progress report was submitted to the Texas Water Development Board. I remember they said that was the quickest they'd ever had someone do the program respond and report. The Education Outreach Committee and EOC have been working to finalize the program policy. The outreach policy update at the September board meeting was reported that Education Outreach Committee and General Manager would develop a comprehensive outreach policy to determine the groups with which we may partner. Once the policy, once our committee comes to an agreement, then it'll come to the board of directors for approval. This may not be.
All right, Mr. Texter, Management Committee.
The management committee did not meet, and unless there's something that comes up in the future completed, we're done for the year.
Excellent.
Wow, that's
All right.
Bye-bye, General Manager's report.
General manager report. So general manager report, Ellery Water will begin their fall monitoring sometime next week or so, and that will probably go on through early November. That's the status of Ellery Water in the fall monitoring program. We've given them a list of our well watch wells. So those well owners that have enrolled in our well watch, Claire should be reaching out to you to schedule time for Ellery Water to go out on site to gauge wells and to take water quality samples. Drought, as you know, has worsened. We are now all in pretty much in T2 in Bastrop County, and Lee County 40% in T2 and almost 60% in D1. So quickly we went into drought. Although we are still a little bit above average for the year for rainfall, but I'm sure that next month that will probably change. Region K meeting, we met in September 25th, and the Region K voted to approve the final report. The next meeting is not until January 16th, where the whole process starts all over again to create the next final report for the next cycle. It's a big report. It's over 1,000 pages, like 1,100 pages. If anyone's interested, I've got the link where you can download that report for the Region K water report. Austin Water, we met September 30th. That was our meeting number 9, and that was just basically recapping their presentations all throughout last month. They were presented, and that was just a recap of what they've found from their feedback from their presentations throughout Bastrop County. I had a presentation October 1st at the Bastrop Chamber of Commerce. Also, this past Friday, there was a GMA 12 meeting, which was quite interesting. We basically have 2 districts going in opposite directions. Brazos Valley wants to pump more and increase the DFCs. All the other GCDs want to keep the DFCs the same. So that's still ongoing. And yeah, I mean, I think we have a 4/5 majority now that want to keep it the same. It's just a question of which model run and which pumping file are we going to use. The next meeting is next month. in November. I did not have the exact date because when I wrote this up, we had not yet met at that meeting. I think it was towards the end of November, is the 22nd, sometime around the 22nd or so is the next GMA program. Pending permits, we still have 3 aqua permits pending. Rosanke and Foster will be next month. Foster will need a hearing. That is a permit for more production. Rosanke is just a replacement well. Upcoming meetings, as I mentioned, January 16th, Region K. I did want to just show you all an animation that was presented at the GMA 12. Just real quick, I'll just show you the one animation. These are pretty new, just received from LRA Water. Let me see if I can cancel. I wanted to share my screen, and I wanted to share this with everybody. So these a few of these animations for the Simpro. These animations were shared with the GMA 12. This animation right here is the drawdown in the obviously the Simsboro, and you can see with these animations, you can see the 2 epicenters, and there's a little dot in Lee County. So you'll see Gatehouse in Lee County, but you see Vista Ridge pretty clearly, just north of Lee County and Burleson. You see the Brazos Valley center of epicenter there of groundwater production. And so we presented this, I believe. I'm trying to see if this which run this was. This was the PS41, which is all permits running at full amounts. So this is pretty much not a very good scenario. And we have these runs for all the formations, for PS41 and PS42, which are the 2 official runs that the Groundwater District has authorized. So I'll just show you the artesian head equivalent. And this is the equivalent with respect to artesian head reductions. And you can see it's all along the outcrop. Starts the percent remaining artesian head lowering, and then it feeds easterly from the outcrop easterly. So significant drawdowns and remaining percent remaining artesian head. Again, this is
made a hit.
Yeah, they did. They made it.
yeah. This went real well at the meetings. And I just want to make sure I was, so we have these are online. I can give you the link if you're interested, download this. That's it, thank you.
Okay, item J, consideration of future agenda items. Anything? Herb?
No, man.
Go to number. Discussion, consideration, possible action on district board meeting calendar. I think we'll continue meeting on the 3rd Wednesday.
Time switch changed for Thanksgiving.
Oh, I haven't either.
No,
I think we're
good. We're good for next month.
Thanksgiving is the 28th, 27th.
Yeah, we're the week before Thanksgiving, so it'll be November 19th.
Okay, November 19th. At 3:30.
What about the Christmas holiday? I don't know if I can say Christmas.
Well, the
Okay.
December,
Christmas.
the December holidays. The December holidays.
Again, the Christmas holiday is the week after.
Yeah, well, our meeting will be the 17th. Did that work for everybody in December?
an office party day.
Yes. I mean, maybe it could be.
Well, December.
Oh, it could be the ninth.
Well, they get a birthday.
Well, I do appreciate you allowing me to have the thing here. Yeah, honeymoon again with my wife in whenever we had it. Last month or so.
Y'all are going on another one?
No. Just making you feel bad.
Okay. Well, we'll keep that in mind, the December. Okay, well, the calendar looks pretty friendly to us for our usual day and time. Okay. Okay, so our next meeting will be here, 3:30, on November the
19th.
19th. 2025, almost over. All right, thanks for the meetings, and we're going to adjourn at
Before we can, I want to make a point. I went through my motion. The obvious contract. Because I thought that needed to be done. And I heard Nancy Burgess Phillips discussion for my motion, which, would not have been in order. And I heard that, I would have never made the motion. And, I see that her discussion kind of ticked me off that an educational person who knows what our meeting date is has something else scheduled. Death in the family or something else, that's one thing. But he had something else going on. I really think she should.
I think we're probably outside of our posted notice. I'm sorry, Director Semang, we're outside of our.
Yeah, we're outside.
I understand, I just want to apologize prior to.
Okay, so noted. With that said, it's 6:25 and we're going to adjourn.